Welcome to the Eberswalde Enigma behind the scenes podcast. Welcome. I'm David Johnson and this is Emma Cracknell.
Hi.
And we are the hosts of the behind the scenes. And this is basically a start of a production where we document what we're going to be doing for the next 2 or 3 years. On a sort of semi-regular basis, I think the intention is. Or when we decide that we need to do something for you to actually see what's going on. The project is big.
Yeah.
The Eberswalde Enigma is the umbrella term for everything that we're doing. It's come about as part of the storyline that was started under Death in Podville, and that's a sort of the follow-up from that, and that's become the umbrella for everything that's related to the universe that we are writing about. And if you hear a cat, then that is Gibby, who is...
Hi, Gibby.
Who just likes attention. So you may hear him in the background. He's discovered very tasty noms, and he keeps complaining because he's not getting enough of them. So we start off with Death in Podville, and that was the audio drama that was created by me a couple of years ago, and that's been on SoundCloud and various other social media, other streaming platforms around. So the intention was to carry on and tell the rest of the story, but due to just the sheer scale of it, I kind of ran out of steam. Yeah, we're having a bit of a we've decided to have a bit of a rejig. Death in Podville was supposed to be three series, and we've done the first one. Second one is kind of second and third have been developed. They've not been finished for writing, but they've kind of morphed into the online story, which is told on Twitter and other social media platforms, which told the rest of the story, bringing it up to date. And from that, we have a selection of characters who have then been given their own sub-story within the universe. So that's where we're planning to move the next phase to, is to take two of the characters that were in the end of the online version, and they get their own spin-off series, basically. Two characters, Tom and Claire, who then go off to then have their own adventures and discover things and tell their own story, but still comes under the Eberswalde universe. Eberswalde, without giving too much away, without trying to give too many spoilers, it's named after two possible things, and I won't say which one it is at the moment. One is a German village, and the other one is a crater on Mars.
You can't get much more different than that. Come on.
So those are the two. That's one of those two things is what it's named after. And if you've followed any of the stories so far, you may pick up on which one it's likely to be. But at the moment, we're not going to say. You have to do the legwork if you want to find out.
What he's saying is watch the original podcast or listen to the original podcast.
Yeah, or go online and
have a look.
There are links. There will be links as to what's going on. So we have multiple things. So we're going to look at Are we going to do unFiction first and then?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. The online story comes under the bracket of unFiction, and it's something that probably most people haven't heard of. unFiction is basically a way of telling a story that is more involved and is as if the person who's involved in the story is treating it as if it's a real. It's not believing it's real, but treating it as if it's a real story, that is really happening. But you know it's not. But you get involved, you interact with it, you become part of the story yourself. There are two sides, two parts of it. You have unFiction, which is the telling of a story where you can be involved but you don't have an outcome, you don't change the outcome of the story, or you have ARGs, which are alternative reality games, which is, it's not a game, but you can have an influence in the way the story goes. So you can have an impact. So something like the Sun Vanishes, which was a Twitter story, you could talk to the characters and influence their decisions. So they would say, right, what do I do? Do I go out the door? Do I go option A or option B? And people would then vote for it, and that outcome would then decide where the person went, what he did next. So that's more of an ARG. A lot of them tend to have a lot of codes and ciphers and problems, and then if you solve that, then they take you to other websites and other hidden materials, videos and stuff like that. So there's plenty out there. If you go to the unFiction forum, there is a lot of existing either stories that have already been told.
There is a lot on there, and it is difficult to get your head around. But I think once you understand the concept of it, it's quite easy.
Lots of films tend to use them. Batman was quite a big one. Super 8 did one. The Cloverfield is all part of the universe, or the Cloverfield Paradox, Cloverfield Original, and the other one, is it Cloverfield Drive? I can't remember which, the second one. And it's all part of the same universe, or people are beginning to realise it's part of the same universe. Oh yeah, Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park is another one where they had an online story. The website was up there for quite some time, and you could interact with it and be part of it, and you could almost have like a mini story within that story, the main story. So it's interesting. There's plenty out there, and there's quite a few. What was the other one? Mr. Robot. They had one as well. So there's lots of different things. A lot of them tend to be sort of media based additions to the story, so you get to discover other side stories and things like that. Yeah. So that's what unFiction is, and that's what we're doing. So the Eberswalde online story was basically that. So you could be involved in some elements of it. You could problem solving or decrypting some of the things, and that led you to different places and different sites, and so that's where that is. So that's where we're going. That's where we're going to keep that story, that kind of storytelling, for the next couple of years.
Yeah, hopefully. How does everything fit in?
Okay, so the umbrella as well. So Death in Podville is the main or first part of the story that sort of introduces a lot of the characters. Then we move on to the online story, as I mentioned, and that sort of takes on sort of from Death in Podville and then sort of builds into the Eberswalde story.
Yeah.
We then have the next bit now where we have the new characters, the existing characters from that move into their own story, the first part leads into the Witches of Warboys documentary. So that's two characters who go on their own story to solve or look into the story about the witches, because it's basically on the doorstep, and that sort of sets up the premise for what's going to come. Then we move into
So Echoes of the Heart is going to be a drama series.
Yep.
And it's being told in a documentary style, using the medium of unFiction in order to tell its story.
Yeah. So that's where that fits in, and then this leads into Sons of the Fens, which is a play, which is based in the Fenlands.
There's a theme here.
Yeah. It's all based in the same, within a 10-mile radius of here. And we originally were going to do the play, and when we realised that people wouldn't necessarily just come along to the play because it was just a random play set in the middle of Fens, and who would be interested in that?
Who wants to come out here, this wild and interesting wet place?
Yeah, just to see something about a bunch of people from a long time ago.
Yeah.
So the idea then was, well, how do we engage the audience? How do we tell the story? How do we get it to a bigger audience to explain what's going to happen? And as we were doing more research, we found out the story was just getting bigger and bigger, and there was a lot going on. So it seemed like a logical process to actually tell the story beforehand. So that we have two parts of it. We have the online version, which tells you everything you need to know about the story. So when you come to the play, it's all there. All the backstory is there. So we don't have to explain everything. We can just go straight into the story and with a bit of a refresh, and then talk about the lives of the people and why they're doing it.
But you'll already have met the characters and the people involved, so yeah.
So if you were to buy the ticket, you would then be sent to the link, so you could then watch the videos which then explain what happens.
Yeah.
So that was the premise. So that's why we're doing this. And you're basically joining us as we start this process of how we go about putting this together. How we tell the story.
Yeah. How do we do this?
And that's going to be quite a challenge.
It is, this is something new for both of us. So it's going to be a learning curve as we go. But it's going to be a fun challenge, I think.
Yeah, it definitely will be fun. What, is there anything else that we need to cover?
Don't think so. Who are the characters?
The characters. So we basically mentioned Tom and Claire. They... In Death in Podville, the museum at Wootton on the Cam. This is the fictional town that exists. It's a new town based just outside Cambridge, set up in the 80s, which has led to a variety of stories. One of which is Death in Podville, but there are other stories based around there. Yeah. But there is a museum, and it's run by the curator Pamela. But there is an assistant who is Claire, and for various reasons Claire ends up being the one to take on the role as lead curator for the museum. And during this period, she was given a load of documents from 400 years ago which are in a bad state. They're unreadable. So she goes through the process of getting them cleaned up, restored, and then it's the journey is basically those letters as they start to become readable. They are all from one person to another, and it tells of their journey as they cross the Fens, going from place to place.
The letters are following this person's journey.
Yeah.
And once they are fully restored and readable, Claire decides that she wants to follow this journey.
Yeah.
In order to, I don't know, get closer to this person or understand this person, but also to honour a friend of hers who you would have seen from the original Death in Podville series.
The online one.
The online one,
version. Yeah. What happens. So there's a follow-on. There's a reason why they're taking on this story.
Yeah.
Part of it is just curiosity. So they basically follow the story, sort of treading the same footpath that the story goes.
Yeah.
And that takes you through the places that you need to know to get to this place. The final destination, and it also introduces a lot of the characters that you will then meet at the place. So it's a roundabout way of doing it, but it's a way of just sort of introducing everyone to all the characters.
It is. So Claire gets hold of these documents, and she eventually gets around to restoring them. And then when she decides that she wants to follow this journey, I mean, she's a historian anyway. She works for the museum, and it's something of interest for her. She enlists the help of another character in the name of Tom.
Yeah.
Tom is how would you describe Tom?
Media production
person. They've worked together in the past.
Yeah.
And she decides that she wants to tell this story and follow it along, and she needs a partner in crime almost for doing this. They've worked together on previous projects, one of those being the Witches of Warboys documentary, which we will also cover.
They start off with a part of the investigation for the Eberswalde. They both go to Aberdeen to follow one of the side stories, or one of the part of the story that's part of that. So they've already had a connection there. They've already started working. So this is the idea is that the museum is being asked to create a series of local stories or investigations as part of their sort of online campaign to interact with the local community. So they then get given the story about, one of which is the Witches of Warboys, because it's interesting, and there's a lot of online stuff, but there's not a lot video production side of it, sort of telling it. There's a lot of parts of the story that haven't really been explored. So
there's definitely a story there to tell.
So we thought out of that story as something of interest anyway, we could tell that story and add to the research that's out there already. And it's just an interesting story.
It is, It's one that we stumbled across. And decided that it needed telling in more detail, and making it available to different audiences who are not necessarily going to pick up a textbook and read about it. It was getting it more accessible to people of all ages, and we've felt that this was one way that we could achieve that.
It's kind of a setup to the Sons of the Fens play as well. It's the same sort of time period. It sets the atmosphere and the tone of what life was like. So everything is all connected. There's all reasons for doing things, and it all leads to the final play, which will be 2 or 3 years down the road when we get there. There's no time constraints. We're just doing it as we go along. So the first part is the Echoes, the documentary, then Echoes of the Heart, which is about a year's worth of investigation, and then the play would then follow on through the next part. It's a big project. There's a lot of research which we're doing at the moment because we want to try and make sure it's as accurate as possible. So
that's one thing that's key to us. Although we're using the media of unFiction, we want as much information to be based on real evidence, real facts, real information. So we're using historical data. We are going around and we're researching. We're going to different museums and talking to different people to get an understanding of exactly what we are talking about. So although the characters are fictional, and although the letters themselves are fictional, what is actually going on in the areas at the time that we're talking about is based on real events and data that's available to us. So we want to try and make it as real as
historically accurate as possible.
We do,
So, but just put a different spin on things. So we're not just telling a historical story, or we're just doing a YouTube video on what happened long ago. We're trying to sort of bring people in so you become involved in the story as well. So it's sort of trying to engage in a different way, in a different audience. And so that's the idea anyway. That's the
and not only have we got the story of these letters and the people that we're dealing with 200-300 years ago, we've also got the story of Tom and Claire themselves, and how they interact and how their relationship develops over the time of these investigations as well. So we're covering quite a few different areas. A
lot of stories on different levels. So it's like, and we've discovered the sort of the parallels between the current between Tom and Claire's life, the letters and the play, and how everything sort of all matches.
Even
they all
though
seem to line up, even though that they are so different, and different stories, different times,
different time periods. There are still aspects that are as relevant today as they were back then.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it for the moment. We will try and have more involvement. I mean, we are part of the patron system, so if you want to support us, that would be very much appreciated. Because this isn't going to be isn't cheap.
No.
We are looking for funding as well. We're applying for various grants as well. So there's a lot of heritage stuff. There's a lot of local stuff, history, hopefully sort of lottery backing as well. We will be looking at the patron side of it as well. So hopefully interaction with the followers as well as merchandising and various other things that we will sort of develop as time goes on. All the links and stuff are all going to be applied. I mean, this will start off on the Patreon site anyway, and then we'll then just go from there. So, if you want to like and subscribe and all those good things, follow the journey, follow what's going on.
Follow the journey with us, because this is a journey for us. It's something that it's a passion of ours, and we would like to be able to do it justice. So.
And we don't know where it's going either.
We don't. It's developed so much since we first sat down and spoke about it. This could develop even further. Who knows? So follow our journey and see where it does take us.
Yeah. So until the next time, it's bye from me.
And bye from me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.